Chuck has been a dear friend, a venture for many, many years. He's been here a lot longer than Carl and I have, and presented for us.
Since the Jesus movement, I was a part of Los Gatos Christian Church, right?
Yeah. So actually, so you probably don't need much. We're glad to have him. Take it away, please.
Thank you, Graham. All right. Thank you so much. As I was thinking about you and praying for you in the last few weeks, I was realizing that. But by the way, how many of you have been in the dialogue process with me? And how many of you have done this? Okay, so it's new to some of you, and we don't have time to go through the full, orientation for that. But we're going to do it. We're going to experience it today. And as Graham said, it is a continuation. This is about communication that leads to connection, and how you can turn every conflict into a deeper connection with each other. But as I was praying for you and thinking, I realized that couples are different in different places. Some of you have a good marriage, but you sort of waned a little bit since you said "I do." Things have gotten a little flat, and you're here because you want to increase that intimacy. You really want all that God has for you in that, and I appreciate that. Some of you are here and you're in a place somewhere between a parallel existence where you are, you're not going to file for divorce, but you're kind of living parallel lives. A lot of your needs are getting met outside the relationship, and there's a distance in the relationship. And then a little more further down that scale is some of us may be living in a silent divorce where we're staying together because of the kids or the grandkids or because of our commitment, but it's not what it could be, and we know it. And then some of us, I believe, have secretly talked, maybe you've shared it with some, maybe it's secret, that you're going to end it. There's no hope. And I want to say to you today that Jesus declared in Matthew 28, all authority has been given to me, and you go and disciple all the nations. And then you see from that commission to the end, in Revelation 21 says, it gives a picture of the nations being led by their leaders into the holy city. So we know that somewhere between what Jesus said and what is the end game, the end result, is the nations will be discipled. Nations, businesses, cities will be transformed. And that transformation is ours. It's a promise. And it begins in us personally and in our marriage and in our family. And so the Lord has promised that. If you said, I do, He's promised to sustain you and keep you, not only keep you together, but keep you on a journey toward a deeper and closer connection to where you experience everything He's intended for you to experience in marriage. And I want to say that because of that promise, I want to say that to you, that the Lord has a plan for you and your marriage to prosper you, to give you a future and a hope, and that you together will realize your dreams, those dreams you had in the beginning, but maybe have been buried by life. And so to come back to that promise, whatever that promise was for you, and if you don't have one, take one from the Scriptures, because He's given it to you. Take that promise, and now you can say, well, my marriage doesn't look like what was promised. Okay, now you have a choice. You have two trees in your garden. You can choose to believe what God says, or you can choose to believe what you see. And let me tell you, if you'll make a bold choice today to surrender to Him, faith doesn't come by intellect or by reasoning or by figuring it out or by effort. It comes by surrender. If you surrender yourself and your marriage to God, you give it to Him, you claim the promise, and go forward. Take a step forward in faith. He will restore your marriage. He will make it all that it's intended to be. And if you keep going, here's the promise. If you keep going and trusting, keep going and trusting, keep going and trusting, the devil will run out of gas. He does. He runs out of gas. And eventually, Matthew chapter 4, Jesus continued pressing in the temptation, and what happened? The devil left him. The devil ran out of gas. Angels came and ministered to him. So a breakthrough is coming for you in your marriage. Hold on to that. Now, breakthrough will come. Some of you will get it today. Some of you, it won't come today because God wants to give you some skills. He wants to give you some preparation so you can steward the breakthrough. Because if he were to give us a breakthrough and we don't have the skills to steward it, then we just go right back to our default brain pathways and reactivity in our marriage, that kind of thing. So let's go. And what I want to do is because we've done a lot of this kind of stuff, I want to focus today on the communication process leading us to a relationship of healing and growth, how a healing and growth relationship works. All right. Okay, so our focus has to be on connection, not just managing distance. Communication is important. You've done a lot of work in that. But communication doesn't mean anything unless it leads to connection. You can communicate perfectly and still be angry at each other and bitter. It's communication that leads to connection. So we want to focus on the goal. Anything short of connection doesn't work. And so when we feel connected, everything works. When we feel disconnected, nothing works. I told you the story about Frank and Katie. Frank and Katie, one of my favorite couples that I changed their names and circumstances. So if you think that you know them, you don't know them. But Frank and Katie, Katie said the problem is that Frank's golf habit is keeping him away, and that the problem is golf. He gave up golf, came back together with Katie and said, I'll just quit golf. But the next Saturday, instead of being on the golf course with his friends, he was in the garage working on something. He was on the computer. He was everywhere but with Katie. Katie discovered it's connection that's the key, not just communication. Okay, and when we focus on connection and when we connect, the problems we come to resolve dissolve. That's how powerful it is. Okay? So conflict is a sign that healing and growth are wanting to happen. Something new is wanting to emerge in your relationship. And so as you work on this growth and healing, when you work on communicating and connecting, then healing and growth is the result. Let's talk a little bit about that. Your partner's need for healing becomes a blueprint for your growth. Your partner's need for healing requires you to grow a part of yourself you never developed growing up. So because of that, you'll find that there is an unconscious resistance to growth. And that's because growth involves moving out of our character structure and our whole defenses and childhood adaptations that kept us safe growing up. We stay in that because we feel safer, and we don't want to come out of that and grow and stretch into new parts of ourselves that were never developed. Let me give you an example. A father and a mother were very intellectual, and the father was especially involved with the child growing up, and really mentored him and helped him develop intellectually. But his emotional part was kind of missing, and so the child never learned to express emotions. Matter of fact, feared that. Because if he expressed emotions at home, he got, it wasn't countenanced. And so what happens? He marries a woman who is emotional and needs that emotional expression. So what's going to happen? He's going to have to grow into that. And there will be all kinds of unconscious resistance to that. Another example, a person grew up where sex was considered bad. That wasn't the intention of the parents, but that was the message the child got, was sex is bad. How many of us experienced that just growing up in church? You kind of experienced that without, it wasn't intended that we experienced that. But then who does he marry or she marry? Someone who's sexually free, and it scares the liver out of them. And because it causes, they're going to have to stretch and grow in a part of themselves that they never developed growing up. So that's what growth is about. So a rupture in our connection happens when our childhood defenses are activated. And let me just say this, your childhood defenses, when you go into that childhood adaptation, it always activates your partner's childhood wounds and vice versa. And we say that 90% of our reaction in conflict comes from childhood. 10% is about the present. So your partner is not the source of your upset. Your partner is a trigger for a deeper feeling. And whenever you're overreactive about something, it's because you are responding to a painful memory, something in your past, going all the way back to the original, just the very beginning of your whole experience. So, what's that? So yeah, if we respond, anytime we have an overreaction and we act like a jerk in our response, it's because we're responding to a painful memory, and it's unconscious, but it's there. And so part of the dialogue process is to get in touch with those deeper childhood wounds. Okay, so there are two default fighting styles, and we find ourselves either the maximizer or we find ourselves the minimizer. You find that the hailstorm is the maximizer. The one explodes outwardly with their energy and their emotion and their anger. And then you find the other partner is one that pulls into themselves like a turtle and disconnects emotionally just to avoid the conflict, right? So we have this kind of, sometimes hailstorms usually marry turtles. Turtles usually are drawn to hailstorms. That's not always the case. Sometimes there are two turtles that marry each other, and it's amazing how distant they can stay for a long time, right? And then there are two, sometimes I have one couple with two hailstorms, and after 3 sessions with them, I didn't call it a hailstorm. I call it a HELL storm, because that's what it was constantly, right? Okay, but what happened is, here's a child growing up, wants attention. He's got a little drawing and wants to show mom. And mom says later, because mom's got 3 other kids, right? And the child keeps coming wanting to show mom the drawing, and mom says later. And the child doesn't get that need met. And so the child either throws himself or herself down on the floor in a tantrum till she gets what she needs, or she goes to her room and pouts. And so whatever worked to help her feel safe in that moment, or to meet that need, or to survive that lack of meeting the need being met, that becomes wired into their neural system, and it becomes our default reaction, and we bring that right into our marriage. And we throw tantrums, and we scream and yell, and we just do adult versions of that, right? Okay, so we conserve our energy by drawing into ourselves, or we explode outwardly. And so so either of these reactions, the second point there, puts safety in jeopardy. And so growth involves moving out of this character structure that you develop to keep you safe. The problem is, and I've said all that already. Okay, going forward. So what is your fighting style? Think about that for a moment. I think you could probably know. We got assessments we can do, but we don't have time to do that. But I want you to think about it, because this week we're going to there's 2 biblical guidelines. Let me give you that. Maximizers, defenses. Our defenses in being a maximizer, exploding outwardly, can cause us to cross a line, violating our marriage covenant by being very destructive with our anger. And the scriptures say, don't grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. That's grieving the Holy Spirit. Or a minimizer, the turtles are the nice people. They're the nice guys. They don't like conflict, so they come across being nice. I just don't want to fight. But what they're doing is they're killing their spouse with a silencer, right? So when you withdraw and you don't give your partner your presence, and you're not available for them to connect, then you're violating a marriage covenant as well, and thus quenching the Holy Spirit, not allowing the Holy Spirit to do what he can do. Okay. All right. So the tools we're going to use, we got to hustle here. The Change Request Dialog, which you have in your hand, we're going to do that this week, and it's going to help you get what you need without the unhealthy expression of anger, right? And we want to say that in every frustration, deep down, there's a wish buried. There's a hidden desire you have in a frustration. And so the Change Request Dialog helps you put that request, that frustration, into a positive request. Because what the hailstorm needs to learn, and this is helpful for both of you, but especially for the maximizer. Because the maximizer, you see, it doesn't get what they need because they express their frustration in an unhealthy way. This is going to teach you to express it in a very healthy way so you get what you need. All right? Next week, we're going to do what we call the commitment dialogue, which helps you as a partner close the exits. When Frank and Katie had their problem, Frank was taking an exit from the relationship. It's a whole lot easier to go on the golf course and play golf with his friends than be at home with Katie, who was not happy. It's easier to stay later at work than it was to come home. And in the dialogue process, Frank said, every time I come in the house, there's a wave of depression that comes over me because of where we are. And so it's so much easier to go. He was a turtle. And so he took an exit from the relationship. Next week, we're going to learn how to close the exits, how to identify them and close them through the dialogue process. All right? Okay, so here we go. So the purpose of the Change Request Dialogue is to restructure your frustration, turning it into a request that will meet an unmet need from childhood. And this will require growth from your partner. Let me give you a couple examples. This week and then a little while ago, one example was I had a couple I was working with, and we did a Change Request Dialogue, and she wanted more expressions of love from him, and actually it was a caring behaviors type of thing. She said, "I would love it if you'd bring me flowers." And so the next week came, and he didn't bring her flowers, and she was saying the same thing, and the next week came, and he didn't bring the flowers. And each week we got a commitment, and he said he would do it. He would do it, and he would do it. And then we realized he's up against something that is I'm not going to use the language that he used, but no. An unconscious no, a growth, something that required something of him we didn't understand. I just said, "Buy the flowers. What's wrong with you?" I didn't say that, but that's what you think, right? Another example I heard this week. The husband goes out and conquers, slays dragons, and comes home, and he wants adoration and appreciation from his wife. He comes home and she says, "You forgot to turn off the coffee maker." And so through the dialogue process, she grew up in a home that's very unsafe, and she was scared to death about fire. He said, "We got fire insurance. We got blood." He didn't, and he grew up in a place where he didn't get attention, and he wanted that attention. You see, so what happened was he said, through this process, I got to the place where I could finally stop being a wuss, stand up, and turn the coffee maker off. And he did it. And it was amazing, the result, you see. But I'm just saying, be forewarned, when you do change requests, your husband or your wife may say, "Sure, I'll do it." And if it doesn't happen, there's more going on. Okay. All right. So change request is healing for the one making the request. Growth is for the one granting the request. It should always be done in the context of empathy. What's the problem with asking for something and there's no empathy? If your partner's going to say, "All right, I'll do it," and then when he does it or she does it, doesn't mean anything anyway, right? But if they see you and they say, "Oh, absolutely, I will do that," and they do it, it brings healing. Because that request is probably something related to something you didn't get growing up. Your partner is here for that reason. She just don't know it yet. He doesn't know it yet, right? Okay, so then, and make it smart requests. I sometimes you just can share a wish. I wish we could spend more time together. Well, okay, give it to him or her in a smart way. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And make it one step. Not, "I want you to have a date night with me every week from now till the Lord comes," right? No, let's start with one step. Next time, give you some examples. Okay, by the way, those of you who are not familiar with this mirroring process, this dialogue process, there's 3 steps: mirroring, validation, and empathy. And the 4th is the change request we add at the end. Okay? All right. So here's the request. Here's the way it's gonna happen. You always ask for an appointment when you want to talk. That's something we covered previously. It's very important for you to say, is this a good time to talk about something I'd like to see in our relationship, something I'd like to see changed? And that way your husband or your wife can say it is a good time or not. But don't just barge in and start telling what you want, right? Just ask for the appointment. Then sit eye to eye, knee to knee, eye to eye contact if you can. Sometimes you can't, but if you can. And then take a few deep breaths and think. Start with an appreciation. Before I share this, I want to say one thing I appreciate about you is, and share that. And then one thing that is happening that is frustrating to me is, then you mirror. What I hear you saying is, what's something that's frustrating is, did I get it? Is there more about that? It's right on your sheet there. Just go word for word. Don't vary this. Use it just as it is, all right? Yes, and when that happens, I feel. You're saying that when that happens, you feel alone, or you feel sad, or you feel angry. Did I get it? Yes. Is there more about that? Yes, and what I'm afraid of is, and talk about it, and mirror that. And what that reminds me of from my childhood is, and talk about it. And then, okay, so then you summarize. So let me summarize what you said. And then after the summary, that's the mirroring part. Then you see on your list, the next thing is validation. They validate, saying what you said makes sense, and what makes sense about it is that a good validation? If yes or no, keep talking about it to yes, that's a good validation. And then finally, empathy. I can see that you feel. And what happens is the person listening is transformed. There's a transcendence from their reality where they didn't see your reality. Now they're seeing your reality. And they're saying, oh, I didn't realize that was so deep for you. I didn't realize that it went back to childhood. I didn't realize that it was because of all that my actions 10% triggered a 90% reaction to pain. I didn't realize that. And see, when you're there, it's safe enough to connect. And then empathy says, I can imagine you feel. Are those the feelings? If not, continue until you got it. And then after the dialogue, usually we stand up and give each other a hug. Remember that? Those of you who did it. 1 minute full body hug after that. Then after that, you say, one thing that would help me next time is, and you give it your change request. Let me give you some examples. Keep in mind, these examples have already been through the whole dialogue, but this is the change request. This is what it looks like. I saw you pass by me at the party twice without speaking to me or even looking at me. I thought you were purposely avoiding me. I felt abandoned just like when I was little and was left at home alone every afternoon. So I pulled away and didn't speak to you for a whole day. What I'm really afraid of is that I'll be alone. And so that came out in the dialogue. And then the change request that she made was, the next time we're at an event, would you find me every half hour, look me into my eyes and tell me and ask how I'm doing. That's all she wanted. Touch me on the hand, look at me. That's all she wanted. It was a networking party. It was a business. He was doing business. He didn't mean to leave her out. But that's what she needed, and he said, absolutely. Change request. Another one, when you rolled your eyes at me because I couldn't figure out how to use my phone, I felt belittled and angry, just like when I was little, never felt as smart as my brother and sister. So I blew up in front of our friends. My fear is that I'll never measure up. And so she said then, or it's actually a woman again, she said, next time I'm technologically challenged, would you help me rather than make fun of me? And in the empathy and that part where he was connected with her, he said, absolutely. He saw what that meant to her. And then when you insisted, this is a guy, when you insisted that I fix the fence, I felt like nothing I ever do is good enough, just like when I was young and could never please my dad. So I went into the garage and spent the whole day doing something else. That's a turtle for you, right? I'm afraid I'll never meet your expectations. And so when she finally saw that, empathized with him in that, including that dad part, seeing that, she heard the request. The next time You want me to do something? Would you first point out some of the things that I've already done that you appreciate? I can tell you that made a huge difference in that couple when she said yes and did that. Okay? All right, so those are some examples. Now, anybody want to demonstrate it? Let me look at my timeline. Do we have time to do all this? Let's see. I said demo. Okay, we can do it. Is there a couple here that want to come up and let me facilitate a demonstration where you could actually experience? You got to be kind of a little daring, and we don't want it to be someone that's, we don't want to go too deep, but we want to go deep enough to just demonstrate it. Somebody's daring. I was afraid of this. Okay, will you come next week and do it? Because I've got a video. I've got a video this week. I don't have one for the next one, which is the commitment dialogue. I got a video for this one. Yes. Will you guys do it next week? Okay. Well, let's do it this. Let's do it. Let's have you do it next week. Oh. Well, I feel in the prompting to show the video right now because I feel like this was a couple. Let me think. Okay, it's in the balance here. I like the live demonstration. Okay, let's do it. Okay, come on. This is one of my favorite couples on the planet right here. I've been with them since they were engaged, believe it or not. You didn't think I was that old, did you? Okay. All right. So why don't you do this? Why don't you say, who wants to share the frustration?
I'm the hailstorm.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Cody Pyle. My wife, Lori Kate. And
Okay.
yes, Chuck, we've been married just over 4 years, and Chuck we were both widowed. We met here, and so we got married. Chuck did our premarital course. It was awesome. So
All right.
we've known Chuck for years now.
They know this dialogue stuff.
we've done
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
It's changed, it's improved things a lot in our relationship. Very happy with this.
Very cool. Okay, so you have the frustration?
Well, I am the hailstorm. He is the turtle. This is
Okay.
classic.
Okay, so that's very appropriate.
Yes, and this came up just a couple days ago, and so I figured I could. Yes. I'd
Okay.
like to.
So ask
It comes up every so often.
Oh, okay, it's a recurring issue. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
I've been growing a lot.
Yeah.
okay. So, Lori Kate, so you say, Cody, is this a good time to share a frustration? About.
Yeah.
Give it in like a subject line in an email.
Okay. And yeah, I will say again, this asking for an appointment has revolutionized our communication. So, baby's at a good time right now to chat with you about what I would like when I'm upset.
Right. Let me see if I can get out of here. Yes, it is.
Okay. So
And
look
did
at
you
each
add-
other.
Did you add the two breaths? I don't remember this step. Adding the breaths and
Yeah.
sync. Is that new?
Take some deep breaths.
Okay.
So, because you want to relax your brain, get out of any state of activity as much as possible to be reactivity, right? Okay. So, take a few deep breaths, look at each other in the eye, and first I want to share an appreciation. One thing I appreciate about you is.
Baby, one thing I appreciate you is how hard you've been working on not turtling, because we'll get to that, but I feel abandoned when you don't want to discuss stuff, and that comes up from my childhood. I know I'm getting out of order, but I really appreciate how hard you've been working on that and expressing your feelings as well.
So let me see if I got you. You appreciate that I'm trying to run away, or I'm working harder at staying present when we have these types of discussions. Did I get that?
Yes. Thank you, baby.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So one thing that's frustrating is
One thing that's frustrating to me is when I get upset and I usually, whatever, I'm sitting on the ground or I'm crying or whatever, or on the couch, and I tend to, I am in a position which is where it's usually not easy to hug me, because I ironically am turtling. I mean, I'm expressing it loudly, but I'm upset and I'm closed and I'm finding a space to feel safe. And for me, I tend to want to be around things that have boundaries. And so what's frustrating to me is um, I am looking I'm looking to feel safe, and I'm upset. And when you ask me to move, which I appreciate is a very reasonable request because I'm making it difficult for you, what's happening for me is that I am needing to know that you are committed to helping me at that point, that you are willing to give me a hug even when I'm not huggable.
So let me see if I got you. You needed to be hugged. You needed to be held in that moment. But you also were not making it easy to do that. Did I get it? Did I get it?
Yes, and I'm sorry. I now can see I'm not making it easy for you because I feel unsafe, and I want to make sure that there's nothing I can do that's going to make you take off. That I'm looking for the demonstration of you hugging me in an uncomfortable position is, for me, a commitment that you're in the relationship even when I'm upset.
Mm-hmm. So let me see if I got this straight. You're seeing how committed I am in the moment to give you what you need.
Yes.
Did I get that?
Right. When you get down on the floor with me and hug me or whatever, when it's uncomfortable, for me that is a commitment that you're there to hear what my hurt is about.
Mm-hmm. Let me see if I got this. So you wanted to see how far I was willing to go to show you that I was there for you.
Yes, that's it.
And is there more?
So let the more be. When that happens,
Yeah.
the way I feel when I hit that frustration is I feel.
When you don't come down and hug me, I feel abandoned and I feel like you don't care.
Mm-hmm. Let me see if I got you. If I'm not giving you the hug you need, you feel like I'm not committed.
Yes.
And is there more?
When I feel that abandonment, what I'm afraid of is that I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be all alone.
So let me see if I've got you here. In all of this, you're afraid of being alone. And so my hugging you is what you need to not feel like you're going to be alone.
Yes.
Is there more?
No, that's it.
So let the more be. What that reminds me of is little.
Yeah. What reminds me of when I was little was when I was hurt and felt like I couldn't go to my parents to get a hug, which wasn't true, but that's another point. But I felt I had to be alone. And so what it reminds me of is when you're there and not hugging me when you see I'm upset, it's like, nope, you're going to take off and I'm going to all be alone. So it's reminding me of the pain as a childhood when I was in pain, not sharing with my parents that I was hurt and I was alone. So it's reminding me of those times when I was in pain and unallowed and afraid to express what I was upset about with my parents. And again, you know the background, and wasn't my parents, but that's just where I was feeling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, let me see if I got you on this. This has stirred up memories from your childhood of when you were feeling pain, emotion or a pain, and there was nobody there for you.
Yes.
Did I get that?
Yeah.
Is there more?
Yeah.
Did you summarize that?
All right. So, let me know if I have this straight. When we tapped into a childhood pain of being alone and nobody being there for you, and so you need me to hug you in this, and even if it's uncomfortable or awkward, you need me to be there for you and to hug you and demonstrate that I'm there for you. Did I get it?
Yes.
So now go to the next step, which is a validation. Validation. Tell her that you make sense, and talk about it makes sense that you would feel.
Right. So it totally makes sense to me that from what you experienced growing up, that these things would come up, and I see the need for me to connect with you in these moments and show you that you're not going to be alone, that I'm here for you.
It makes sense.
It makes sense to me.
Is that a good validation?
It is.
Is that a good validation?
Is that a good validation?
Thank you, baby. It means a lot.
So empathy says, I can imagine you felt, and that you would feel.
Mm-hmm. Say that?
I can imagine that you felt.
Mm-hmm. So I can imagine that you felt alone in that moment and needed that kind of contact and support.
Okay, so let me say validation is validating her reality, even though he may see it differently. He's now seeing from her perspective, right? And that validation. Empathy, he's connecting with the heart. He's imagining what she feels. And now, so that's when the dialogue usually ends, in that place of empathy. But now we give Lori Kate a chance to make a request, which she's kind of done all the way through. Which they're skilled at this. They've got ahead of us on it. But so Lori Kate, say one thing that would help me in the future.
One thing that would help me in the future is when I'm upset and even though I'm in an uncomfortable position to hug, if you would just hug me and not ask me to move, but just hug me right then.
Thank you. So,
So you can say
yes, I get that. Even though it's not comfortable, I can give you a hug, because you need that.
Okay. All right. Let's give him a hand. Right. Before you go. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. And always, like it, put on yours, give a 1 minute full body hug. Now, for Cody, this may be a challenge because, it could be she's there and everything in you is screaming, no way. Not until I get what I need, right? And that's where you stretch and grow with agape love, and you give her what she needs because you know it's the right thing to do. And your feelings will follow, and her feelings will be ignited. Her romance will continue, right? Okay, thanks again. All right. Okay, now, so you guys have 15 minutes. Unfortunately, you need about 15 minutes. Obviously, you saw that each side. But what I want you to do is go ahead as couples and start by asking for the appointment. Identify who goes first, who has the frustration to share, and just start. Ask for the appointment, get set up, and share the appreciation, and then go for it, okay? And if you have problems or questions, raise your hand.